What's going on, everyone? It's 11/11, November 11th, 2024, and welcome back to this, the 92nd edition of the Superstream. As always, my name is Derek, author and webmaster of Gematrinator.com, the website that gives you a mystical window into the inner workings of the universe. And as always on this channel, we will look at synchronicity, particularly through numerology, in the world of news and sports. And of course, this week, the big news all around the world is that Donald Trump was elected 47th President of the United States, after first having been President number 45. And of course, this being Superstream 92, kind of stood out to me because when you add 45 and 47, well, you get a sum of 92, so it's an appropriate topic for today. But what we'll focus on is how this all ties back to NASCAR legend Bobby Allison, a one-time Cup champion who passed away on Saturday, November 9th, the same date that NASCAR began its championship weekend in Phoenix, Arizona at their raceway. So we'll talk about these news stories on the screen. And if you want to jump straight to any of them, I'll put chapters on the video so you can do that. But we got a lot to cover, including how this all connects to the NFL as well. Yesterday, Sunday, Week 10 in the NFL, was a huge day for kickers. And we'll talk about this riddle that syncs all of them up. Now, if you caught my last video, I talked a little bit about Donald Trump and his appointment of Susie Wiles as his new chief of staff. And in this video, I talked a little bit about the upcoming football game with the Atlanta Falcons, because on Election Day, we learned about the death of Republican mega donor Bernard Marcus. This was announced on Truth Social. Bernard Marcus was the co-founder of the Home Depot, along with Arthur Blank. And Blank is the owner of the Atlanta Falcons. And the Falcons were looking for their 47th win. I'm sorry, 407th win of all time, syncing up with Beast. And this is the huge number that we'll be talking about. Trump, President 47, matching the Gematria of Beast. So, of course, Gematria kicks off with the base 4 ciphers, in addition to the Latin or Agrippa's key method, which I consider to be the most significant. We'll talk about this a lot as we go. So, you can think of Donald Trump as the 9/11 president. Now, he was not in office during the 9/11 attacks. Of course, that was George W. Bush, but this numerology is stamped on this man all over the board as well. Think about his first victorious election in 2016, when he offered his acceptance speech on November 9th, or 11/9. This year, he offered his acceptance speech on November 6th, or 11/6, which is, of course, an upside-down 9. In Latin Gematria, the name Donald equals 119, while his name Donald J. Trump is just one off of 1190. Back in, well, I don't know what year this was actually, but he was in a Serta commercial with the numbers 11 and 9 on some sheep in his hotel. So this all connects to Bobby Allison, the NASCAR driver who died the same day as championship weekend began. Notice how his full name, Robert Arthur Allison, as it's displayed, also here on Wikipedia, this name has Gematria of both 1016 and 911 in the Satanic Gematria cipher. Now think about, again, how 116 is an upside-down 9/11, and he dies on November 9th. A day after he passes away, Joey Logano wins the 2024 Cup Series championship. And using the alphabetic order, the name Joey Logano sums to 119. In fact, if you look at his birthday, we discover that he was born on a date with 119 numerology, adding 5 plus 24 plus 90, 119. So Trump becoming the 47th president, and again, Trump equals 47, so does president, White House, government, Republican, Democrat, and beast. Now on Saturday, we get the death of Bobby Allison, whose name equals 47 in reduction, followed by a championship win by Joey Logano, whose name also equals 47 in reduction. So when Allison passed away, his death was first announced to fans at the Phoenix Raceway, which is again the site of the final championship weekend for NASCAR. Now, NASCAR runs two different main series. Of course, there's the Cup Series, which was won by Joey Logano on Sunday, November 10th. But there's also something called the Xfinity Series. Think of it as NASCAR's minor league, so to speak. And those races are typically held on Saturday, which was the day that Bobby Allison died. That race was won by driver Riley Herbst. However, the championship for the entire season was claimed by Justin Allgaier in that same race. So we're going to look at their numerical connections to this entire story. Now, the big giveaway that something is up here, something stronger that connects all of this together, is that when Bobby Allison won the 1983 Winston Cup Championship, he drove the number 22 car. A day after he dies, Joey Logano, one of 4 playoff drivers, wins the race, also in the number 22 car. Now, what also stands out is that the Xfinity Series was won by Justin Allgaier, who has matching 220 reverse gematria with, once again, the new president, Donald John Trump. 220. But of course, this was the weekend, and the weekend is owned by football in the United States, particularly the National Football League, which has gematria of 220, a game with 22 players on the field. Now on Sunday, this past weekend, November 10th, the beginning of Week 10 in the NFL, the first game in the morning was held in Munich, Germany. Now Munich is a pretty interesting place because Munich is located in the free state of Bavaria. Well, why is that interesting? Well, Bavaria was the birthplace of Donald Trump's grandfather, Frederick Trump, a German American born in Bavaria before immigrating to the United States. And then we'll also look at how this all connects to the NFL. And in that game in Munich, Germany, the Panthers won in overtime on a field goal by Eddy Pineiro. Now, that Falcons game I was talking about earlier, it was the kicker, Younghoe Koo, who missed 3 different field goals and was blamed for his team's 3-point loss. On Sunday Night Football, the last game of the day, Jake Bates tied and won the game for Detroit with 2 impressive field goals at the end of the game. And all of these cities are connected to motor racing. Carolina is home to the Earnhardts, particularly Kannapolis, Carolina, which is also home to Stewart-Haas Racing, which just had its final race this past weekend. For NASCAR, anyway. Now, Atlanta, again, that's the team owned by Arthur Blank, the business partner of Bernard Marcus, who died right before Election Day. And then the city of Detroit, well, that's the Motor City. And last week I even talked about how the Packers game against Detroit was synced to the Formula One race in Brazil, as the Packers were the first NFL team to play in Brazil earlier this year. Furthermore, Eddy Pineiro, the kicker who won the game in Germany, he was born in Miami, Florida, which is also the birthplace of Bobby Allison. But this all led to a riddle with a kicker named Bates. And think about this for a second, right? The name Bates has the same 5 letters as the word beast. And even before the game, I picked up on this riddle. You can see yesterday, 7:28, just as kickoff was getting underway for Sunday Night Football, I pointed out how the Lions kicker had remarkable alignments to the kickers that were significant earlier in the day. And then after the game, I came back and I was like, oh, look at this. Imagine this. Look who tied the game and look who won the game. And for those of you who enjoy sports betting, again, it's not always something I recommend, but here's an example of where you could have won, because yesterday, at halftime, the Lions were like an 8-point underdog. They were +8. But considering how strong this riddle was, you knew this game would come down to a kick. So they were very unlikely to lose by anything more than 3 points. So to me, that was a slam dunk right there. And it all tied into what I pointed out before the game. So this 47 riddle, check out how this ties into the kickers that partook in yesterday's tomfoolery on the NFL field. Now again, Bates, just like Beast, equals 47 in the alphabetic order, the number of the new president. Younghoe Koo is the oldest of these 3 kickers, and he was born 407 days before Eddy Pineiro, and exactly 4 years and 7 months before Jake Bates. His name Younghoe in reduction is 47. And then you got Pineiro, who kicks for the Panthers, which equals 47. And in this loss for the Falcons, where the Korean kicker Younghoe was blamed, the Falcons failed to get their 407th franchise victory. And instead, they were dealt their 521st loss. And notice how in standard Gematria, the beast equals 521. This cipher, structured similarly to Latin, but using the current 26-letter alphabetic order. So just tremendous numbers connecting all of these kickers together. So let's talk about some numbers with Bobby Allison for Saturday at the Xfinity race. Now again, the race was won by Riley Earps, but the championship was claimed by Justin Allgaier. These 2 drivers were born 4,646 days apart. This race was held in Phoenix, which is 46 reduction, syncing up with the name Bobby in ordinal. And of course, 46, a number we very commonly see in stories about death. Now, one day before Bobby Allison was born, there was an annular solar eclipse, the only one of the year. And actually, it occurred late enough in the day that it technically occurred on his birthday as well. So there is a strong connection to the sun, as we will see. And I'll come back to this in a little bit to bring this all together. But again, let's go back to the number 911. We talked about this earlier, as his name sums to 9/11 and 1016, and then he dies on the date 11/9, or 9/11 as you'd write it internationally. In fact, this is such an important number that November 9th equals 1109 in Latin. Ritual human sacrifice in 9/11 in Satanic also. Now, the date 11/9, when he passed away, was 11 months and 6 days after his birthday. And that same day, the championship was won by Justin Merle Allgaier. This man with an awkward middle name, summing to 116, the upside-down 9/11. The winner of the race, however, was Earps. His name equals 116. And he was born 11 weeks and 6 days after Bobby's birthday. Now, the number 911 is a prime number. And we'll start talking a lot about prime numbers here. The number 156 is very significant to this code because not only is the 156th prime 911, but 156 is also the 119th composite number. And champion Justin Allgaier was 156 days after his birthday when he claimed the championship, and his full name sums to 1560 in the Sumerian cipher, a method which maintains the alphabetic order but multiplies it by 6. 156, also a significant eclipse number, as eclipses always occur 1, 5, or 6 lunar phases apart. And then the winner of the race is Riley Herbst. And would you believe his name also equals 156? In fact, his name is a perfect overlap with 33. We'll talk more about that in a second. But one of those numbers they share is 141. 33 is 141. Riley Herbst is 141. And how do we know this is an important number to Bobby Allison? Well, if you look at the day Bobby Allison was born, again, it was the same day as a solar eclipse. And that solar eclipse belonged to Saros Series 141. Again, at any given time, there's anywhere from about 35 to 40 active Saros series. And it just so happens that this eclipse on the day he was born syncs up with the winner of the race. And you have to appreciate how Riley Herbst was born in 1999. You get the upside down 666. And his name, Riley Herbst, is 60 and 66. And then Justin Allgaier, who got the championship, he was born on June 6th, or 6-6. This guy was also born in 86. And Bobby Allison, dead at the age of 86. Riley Herbst was also born 9 months, 9 days before Bobby's 1999 birthday. So the 666 code here is extremely significant. And this ties back to what I've been saying for like 6 months now. It's all because the inauguration occurs exactly 666 months after the first ever moon landing. And the first ever moon landing was carried out by NASA, whose full name sums to 666. So that's a big theme with the presidency upcoming as well. So the number 33 also has this property, right? 156, 66, and 60. So you can sort of say that 33 is shorthand for 666. Well, this race in Phoenix, the Xfinity Championship race, was the 33rd and final race of the season. And of course, it's held in Phoenix, which is one of these cities whose abbreviation is 33 in Gematria, and it sits on the 33rd parallel. Towards the east coast of the United States, it's the ATL that sits on the 33rd parallel, and ATL is 33. And of course, Atlanta, you know, the team that Younghoe Koo kicks for. We'll come back to that in a little bit. But Bobby Allison, who was part of the Alabama gang, notice how Alabama gang is putting quotes in the headline here. Alabama gang equals 33, and he died 3 weeks and 3 days before his upcoming birthday. Now, earlier this year, we had the second of the 2 twin eclipses over the United States. These 2 twin eclipses, the cross under the bones. Well, the first of those eclipses was 33 years after Bobby's first Winston Cup championship. And notice how Winston equals 33 like eclipse. But what's truly staggering are the numerical connections Bobby Allison has to championship winner Justin Allgaier. Now, we talked a lot about 9/11. Well, Bobby's only Cup championship was 929 weeks before the 9/11 attacks. The worst terror attacks to ever strike the United States of America. United States of America with that 929. Well, when Justin Allgaier was born, it was 929 days after that very date, the Cup championship for Allison. Now, 929 is the 158th prime number, and would you believe it? In the alphabetic order, the driver Justin Allgaier has Gematria of 158. And then you got Bobby Allison, part of the Alabama gang, Alabama 158. Also, this race, the final race, is held in the city of Avondale, Arizona. And notice how Avondale, Arizona, also 158. Now, this was actually a number that permeated through the other decodes as well. And I don't want to get too sidetracked here, but it's pretty incredible how it all connects. So meanwhile, in the NFL, this Sunday was 11,580 days after the World Trade Center bombing, which was kind of the precursor to the 9/11 attacks. And there's a huge riddle there. Again, I don't want to get too sidetracked. I already started. But in these other games, this popped up for Younghoe Koo, the Atlanta kicker who blew the game. Look at his age. 11,058 days. And with capital letters, the Beast also has this 158. Now, if you measure from the 9/11 attacks to these NFL games this past weekend, and you take the number of days, look at the prime relation, 1058. Like, holy moly. But it's not just the 158. Notice also how the name Justin Allgaier has Gematria of 314, and he won the championship in Avondale, Arizona, which also equals 314. Now, of course, on the date of the 9/11 attacks, the book Life of Pi was published, September 11th, 2001. And pi is also a big part of this riddle. Now, this championship for the Xfinity Series was decided on November 9th, which in a leap year is the 314th day of the year, the same day that Bobby Allison died. And this date is the opposite day on the calendar from the founding date of NASCAR. NASCAR was founded on February 21st, also in a leap year. And February 21st is the date that leaves 314 days in a leap year. So when we rush back here, we find out that Eddy Pineiro, the game-winning kicker in Germany, was born 3,014 weeks after Bobby Allison. And then the kicker who ended the day on Sunday was Jake Bates. But it was Younghoe Koo, the Atlanta kicker, who was 30 years and 14 weeks old, also one day. And pi is 3.141. And it's interesting that he's Korean, right? I've talked about this before. When you write out North and South Korea, it's 227. There's 360 degrees in a circle, which is 227. Well, Alt 227 gives you the pi symbol on a Windows keyboard. 22 divided by 7 on a calculator gives you 3.14. And in Gematria, 22 divided by 7 is 3.14. So a deeply woven code, and very visible in the events of this weekend. Now, NASCAR's founding date, February 21st, 221. Bobby Allison, even though he won the title in 83, he kept driving until 88. And if you measure from his Winston Cup championship to his last victory in NASCAR, you get exactly 221 weeks, reflecting the founding date of NASCAR, 221. Race winner Riley Erbst was born 2 months and 21 days after Bobby Allison's birthday. And I'm going to get sidetracked again because I knew this 221 came up in my last post. It's probably at the end here. Yeah, here it was. So Joey Logano, he wins the NASCAR Cup Series championship the following day. And notice how he was born 22,010 days after the discovery of Pluto. And on my channel all year, I've been talking about how this NASCAR season is all synced up to Pluto. I'm going to link these videos down in the description below. But this has been definitely what's going on. So Joey Logano was also born on the date leaving 221 days in the year. And we're talking about a pi riddle? Pi riddle sums to 221. This all circles back to the Declaration of Independence, the document that Donald Trump swears to restore. And look at Donald Trump. Look at his age when Pluto was demoted to a dwarf planet. The first 4 digits of pi, 3141. So, just many layers to unpack here. But there's a little bit more on Bobby Allison I want to touch on here. Allison died on the final day of the 43rd season of the Xfinity Series. And his death was exactly 4,003 weeks after the founding of NASCAR. The word killing sums to 43, but so does NASCAR. NASCAR summing to 43. NASCAR also has the 215 in Latin. And this is an important number because Allison died 215 days after the Great American Eclipse. And the driver was also born 21 months and 5 days before his famous race car brother, Donnie Allison. All right, so I'm actually going to keep this post open because there's a little bit more I'm going to circle back to. But, again, this all brings us back to Pluto. Now, in February of this year, 221 in fact, NASCAR's anniversary, I discussed how this NASCAR season was all synced up to Pluto and Dale Earnhardt, particularly Dale Earnhardt Sr. Dale Earnhardt Sr., a 7-time NASCAR champion who died in a crash on the anniversary of Pluto's discovery. And it was so wild. He died on the 71st anniversary of Pluto, and his death was 71 days before his birthday. The phrase car crash equals 71. But also notice how the word crash on its own sums to 49. Well, if I can find it, here we are. Dale Earnhardt dead at the age of 49. And he was born on a date with a life lesson number of 49. Also, race car equals 49. Meanwhile, the man who discovered Pluto on the 49th day of the year was named Clyde. An astronomer named Clyde Tombaugh, whose name also equals 49. So why was Joey Logano the proper Plutonian driver to win the championship in NASCAR this year? Well, consider how Donald Trump is being called by many a fascist. And a fascist is a society of plutocrats, essentially, which is a government ruled by the wealthiest and the business class. And that's kind of what Donald Trump represents, right? He's a billionaire from New York, born into wealth, grew that. He's the richest president of all time. So there's a huge Pluto riddle, and it all lines up because Pluto has an orbital period of 248 years. And once again, we get Donald Trump, the president, summing to 248. And in both times he won the election, he stopped America from getting its first woman president. And this is a phrase that sums to 248. Now, back in the year 2006, Pluto was demoted to a dwarf planet. And that happened on August 24th of 2006. And that date can be written as 24/8 or 824. So, this is why it all connects to Kobe Bryant. That's not part of this video. But, we'll actually talk about these numbers again later. Joey Logano drives for Team Penske. And notice how Team Penske has Gematria of 346. And Logano's Cup title was 34,600 days after the discovery of Pluto. I think Trump's definitely more Jesuit. That's just my opinion. I'm not the authority on that. After Joey Logano won the championship, the team celebrated. Team Penske, check this out. Team Penske celebrating their 47th championship across the various motorsport classes that they participate in. And again, we're talking about president number 47, the big beast number of the day. And what do you know? Joey Logano wins the Cup in the 22 car, syncing up with Donald John Trump. And also, all circling back to Dale Earnhardt. Dale equals 22, while Dale Earnhardt equals 220. Again, the Xfinity driver, Justin Allgaier, 220. And it all goes back to the death of Bobby Allison, who claimed the Cup in the 22 car as well. 220 is also the value of September 11th in Gematria. And not only does the name Joey Logano sum to 119 like we saw earlier, but his full name, Joseph Thomas Logano, has matching 1260 Latin Gematria with September 11th. And his middle name, Thomas, means twin. And these are the Twin Towers. Now, when it comes to the Twin Towers, a very important number is 110, as this slide demonstrates. Also the number 11, but they're kind of the same because, as you've been noticing, zeros are typically ignored. Well, on the date of the 9/11 attacks, Joey Logano was 11 years and 110 days old. Logano was born 1,011 months after the man who discovered Pluto, and 110 days after his birthday. Furthermore, Logano was born 11 months and 11 days after Donald Trump's birthday. And just as an aside, this has nothing to do with the current decode, but my name, just for the record, does have gematria of 1111 in the trigonal method. And a lot of people call this the wake-up number. So if you're wondering, wow, that's crazy, the guy who built this calculator, his name equals 1111, that's right. It's a crazy matrix we live in. My name also matches both gematria and synchronicity, right? 142 and 182. Gematria 142. Synchronicity 182. But moving on. So Joey Logano connected to the 119 code, and it was Dale Earnhardt who was born on the 119th day of the year. Now, when you look at the World Trade Center for 9/11, think about the two towers that fell, in addition to the Solomon Towers, or the Solomon Building, as I should say, which also fell mysteriously, despite not being struck by an airplane. So we got 3 buildings, 1, 2, and 7 collapsed on that date. And the name Logano also has this 127 with capital letters. And when Dale Earnhardt died, Logano was 10 years, 270 days old. Now, in yesterday's race, where Logano won the championship, the safety car was driven by Olympian Michael Phelps, whose name also equals 127. And yes, that Michael Phelps, the swimmer. So as long as he's surrounded by walls, I guess he's okay. But the name Michael Phelps has matching 319 gematria with the name Earnhardt. So how perfect. And then you look at Michael Phelps' age for the race as he's driving the safety car, and he's exactly 2,054 weeks old. And September 11th is the 254th day of the year. And look at how Joey Logano connects to the Earnhardts. Because not only do we have Dale Earnhardt Sr., but we also have one of the most popular drivers ever, Dale Earnhardt Jr. And these two men were born 1,223 weeks apart. The name Joey Logano equals 1223 in Latin. But the number of the beast is really what this is all about. And if you were to use the prime number cipher of gematria, one of the base 10 methods going back to the ancient Hebrew gematria practice, using just prime numbers in gematria, the name Joseph Thomas Logano yields a 666, which is the Sumerian gematria of the name Dale Earnhardt and the upside-down value of his son Earnhardt Jr. Bobby Allison has a strong 666 connection to Clyde Tombaugh, if you measure between their birthdays. But look at this. This is where it really comes together. When you write out 666, it equals 2,038 in Latin. And Joey Logano was born 2,038 weeks after Dale Earnhardt Sr. On top of that, he wins the Cup exactly 1,238 weeks after Earnhardt died. And that same duration of time is also 8,666 days. What a script. So Dale Earnhardt was known as the Intimidator. Now, the Intimidator equals 165. And this is another number that connects the two Earnhardt drivers, because when his son Dale Jr. was born, Sr. was 165 days after his birthday. And not only does 666 sum to 1650, but 666 equals 1605. And this brings us back to Donald Trump, who was 16,050 days old when Joey Logano was born. And this is a number that's always been synced up with Donald Trump, whose June 14th birthday is the 165th day of the year. And when you write out his full name in Gematria, you get the 165th prime number, 977. And in fact, yeah, we'll talk about these digits more in a little bit. But look at how Trump connects to Dale Earnhardt. This blew my mind, actually, because if you're one of the people who follow my work, one of the kind souls, you know about this number 1973. It's a number that's very connected to the World Trade Center because it opened in the year 1973 and then was then destroyed during Brown Lunation 973. And when you write out 973, it sums to 1973. And when Dale Earnhardt Sr. died in 2001, the same year as the 9/11 attacks, Donald Trump was 19,973 days old. Now, Dale Earnhardt, that's actually his middle name, Dale. His first name is Ralph. But I guess Ralph Earnhardt doesn't have the same adrenaline-inducing vibrations as Dale Earnhardt. But it is worth pointing out that Ralph Earnhardt sums to 144, which is a number connected to Number of the Beast, which is 1044. Mark of the Beast, 144 and 1404. Joey Logano was born on the 144th day of the year. The previous day's race winner had 144 birth numerology. But that's not all. If you measure from the birthday of Joey Logano to this other 666 guy, Riley Herbst, they were born exactly 8 years and 9 months apart. And that's another number connected to Earnhardt, who has matching 89 gematria with the man who discovered Pluto, Clyde William Tombaugh. And we know that there's a connection with Pluto and NASCAR because while this man, who is so closely associated with the dwarf planet at the edge of the solar system, he's got the names Clyde William. And there's this driver currently in NASCAR named Chase Elliott, whose real name is William Clyde. And this guy drives the number 9 car, like how Pluto is the 9th planet from the sun. So let's dive a little bit more deeply into the Plutonian connections for Joey Logano and the Earnhardts. And then we'll scoot over to the NFL and talk about the riddle with these kickers. Now, when Dale Earnhardt Sr. died, and mind you, this is an incredible riddle. Just look at this, too. Well, you know what? I'll bring this back up later, because I'll talk about that number when it matters. Clyde Tombaugh would have been 2,360 weeks old exactly when Dale Earnhardt was born. In fact, that was his age because he was still alive. Well, when Pluto was demoted to a dwarf planet in 2006, it was on the 236th day of the year. Yesterday, when Joey Logano won the Cup, it was 23 years and 60 days after the September 11th attacks. And using capital letters, the name Joey Logano equals 236. Now, on the same date, yesterday, November 10th, Dale Earnhardt Jr., he was also born on the 10th day of the month. So he was exactly 50 years in 1 month, or 601 months old. Pluto equals 51, while Dwarf equals 601. And check out Dale Earnhardt. He was born 824 months after Clyde Tombaugh and 248 days after his birthday. And again, 824 or 24/8, that was the date that Pluto was demoted. That demotion was also 248 days before Dale Earnhardt Sr.'s birthday. Clyde Tombaugh also has a numerical connection to Trump through the number 215. 215, also a NASCAR number. On the date of yesterday's Cup Series championship race, Dale Earnhardt Sr. would have been 26,860 days old. Now, why do I point that out? Well, the last 4 digits here end with 6860. And in Latin Gematria, the name Bobby Allison sums to 686. Syncing up with Earnhardt's age for Logano's Cup win. But without the end date, Earnhardt also had an 859 in his age. And 859 is the Gematria of Donald J. Trump. Also, James A. Garfield was 859. That was another president who was shot. But what about Joey Logano's age, the driver himself? When he won the Cup championship, he was 12,589 days old. And in Latin Gematria, Donald Trump equals 589. And on the date of the 9/11 attacks, Trump was even 55 years and 89 days old. 589 is also the value of some of the founding features of America, the Declaration of Independence and the Star-Spangled Banner. And when Trump was shot in Butler, Pennsylvania, underneath the Star-Spangled Banner, the United States was 90,589 days old. And don't forget the assassination on, or attempt anyway, on July 13th. That was 119 days before the date 11/9, when Bobby Allison died. But would you believe Dale Earnhardt Jr., he also has the 589 in standard Gematria. This number persists so much. Yesterday's Cup championship was 18 years and 78 days after Pluto's demotion. Now, why do I point this out? It's all because of the number 878. Notice how Dale Earnhardt Sr.'s full name sums to 878. When Clyde Tombaugh discovered the planet Pluto, he was 8,780 days old. But would you believe this? This is so insane. If you go all the way back to Independence Day and measure from that date to Sunday and Logano's Cup championship, look at the prime number connection. 8780. How is this possible even? And this is a number that I'm kind of associated with myself, I guess you could say. My full name equals 878. And a few years before I got into Gematria and, rigged sports and all that good stuff, I started following Everton FC. And Everton just so happened to be born or founded in 1878. So it's a number I've always had an eye for, and I just can't believe this connection, right? I don't know what else to say. I want to add something to it, but I'm like, sometimes I blow my own mind with these posts. But then you look at this number 979. If you take out the digits, 0. Notice how this is 11 times 89. A biblical number that's connected to Donald J. Trump. So talk about an amazing, deeply woven tapestry that literally goes back centuries. It's almost like this is coded as if the solar system is discovering itself. I don't know. I have a lot of theories about this stuff, most of which you shouldn't really sit there and listen to. All right, next up. The first NFL game, Sunday morning on November 10th, featured the Panthers and Giants in a thriller that went to overtime, keeping the European NFL fans in the dark. Very happy. I'm kind of impressed by my friends over the pond there who fill these stadiums for every NFL game. It's like there's a lot of people over there who actually like our ridiculous form of football. So let's talk about Eddy Pineiro. Now, he again was born in Miami, Florida, who happens to be playing on Monday Night Football tonight. And I'm already kind of running late on this stream, so I probably won't talk about that. But that's also the birthplace of Bobby Allison. And Eddy Pineiro has matching gematria with Bobby Allison's common and full names. Now, when Eddy Pineiro won the game, it put 37 total points on the board, 20-17. Carolina and Panther both equal 37. Stock car equals 370. Matching the name Allison, 37. Who died on the same day as the Xfinity Championship, Xfinity 37. And Bobby Allison was even born in the year 37. So Allison's death was 8,460 days after the 9/11 attacks. And remember, the North Tower was struck that morning at 8:46 a.m. Also during the time of Virgo, September 11th, 8:46. Also a number connected to the sun, which is certainly a big part of this. But this kicker who won the game for the Panthers, Pineiro, in the alphabetic order, his name equals 86, which is the age of Bobby Allison when he passed away, 86. Now, Pineiro's field goal gave the Carolina Panthers their 226th all-time victory, including the playoffs. And notice how Carolina Panthers equals 226. Again, Carolina, the state where the Earnhardts are from, the home of Kannapolis and Stuart Haas Racing. And would you believe they played against the New York Giants? And where was Donald Trump born? New York City, of course. So Pineiro, with his field goal, gave the New York Giants their 683rd loss of all time. And that's the 124th prime number, connecting to the name Eddy Pineiro, 124. But I want to focus back on this 226. Because the Xfinity Series was won by Justin Allgaier, whose full name equals 226. And when it comes to the World Trade Center, 226 was the date of the bombing there in the year 93. Well, notice how Bobby Allison's full name equals 93. Eddy Pineiro was born 930 days after the World Trade Center bombing and 90 months and 30 days after Bobby Allison's final NASCAR victory. So again, this stands to reason because if it's synced up with the 9/11 code, of course, previous attacks at the World Trade Center as well. Now, the city of New York has 666 Gematria, and remember this 165 from earlier, which is synced to the number of the beast. Well, when Bobby Allison died, Eddy Pineiro was 10,650 days old. Allison's full name matches 666, 2127. The World Trade Center bombing was 9 years and 99 days after Bobby Allison's only Cup championship. Eddy Pineiro was born 9 years and 99 days after Justin Allgaier, who won the championship the same day Bobby died. And then we get this kicker, Eddy Pineiro, whose name in Latin Gematria equals 666. Now, another connection from 666 to 9/11 is through time, because 666 minutes is also 11 hours and 6 minutes. And Eddy Pineiro is another junior. You know, talking about Dale Jr. earlier. Well, here's another Pineiro Jr. Well, if you add the junior, his name equals 1106 in standard. And not only was he born 11 years and 9 months after Allison's Cup win, but also 9 months and 11 days after Allison's birthday. And I mentioned how September 11th equals 1260 earlier, right? Because Joey Logano's full name sums to 1260. Well, an important fact about that I didn't point out is that we are currently under Brown lunation number 1260. And this kicker, 1260 days old, when Riley Herbst was born. Riley, the race winner in Phoenix. Pineiro's birth was also 929 days after the World Trade Center bombing. We talked about this connection to 158 earlier, so I don't want to rehash too much here. Pineiro was also born 3 weeks and 3 days. Oh, I'm sorry. Let me back up. This number 141 we know is important to Bobby Allison, born on the same date as an eclipse from Saros 141. Eddy Pineiro was born 141 months, 3 weeks, and 3 days after Allison's Cup championship. So much to unpack there. But now that it's appropriately 9:30 on my clock, let's go ahead and take a look at the last story that we're going to talk about. Because this whole kicker riddle began with Eddy Pineiro in the morning game, and then it extended to Younghoe Koo in the noon game. And it is worth mentioning, there's another kicker that I didn't even mention yet. Jake Moody. This is the kicker who won the game in San Francisco after he was almost goated in that game, or scapegoated, because he missed 3 field goals, just like Younghoe Koo. However, Moody ended up kicking the game winner and being the hero. But look at Jake Moody's age on Sunday. This made me laugh. Because this guy was also born in 1999. And he was 9,109 days old. So you get the 911, the 119, all together. He was also 11 months and 19 days after his birthday, for good measure. So it's all about the beast. And to prove that, we got a kicker with the name Bates. And there's this big long story about how this guy was like bagging groceries last week, or I forget, he was scooping raccoons off the road, or I can't remember, something like that. He was selling hot dogs on the corner. I don't recall, but either way, it just so happened that he returned with the Lions to his hometown. So in front of his family and friends, he got to win the game on national television. Oh, can you hear the teardrops dripping off my face? Well, that's good because I'm not crying. These storylines are ridiculous, but another week, another script in the lovely NFL that we've all come to appreciate for different reasons. So would you believe this guy named Bates, who obviously has the same gematria as Beast, just turned 308 months old last week? And when you write out Beast, it equals 308. In reverse, Bates and Beast also equal 88. And not only was he 308 months old, but he was also 8 months and 8 days after his birthday. And he plays for the team that represents Detroit, Michigan, which equals 308 and 88. Naturally, Trump is 88. Don't forget about the Mar-a-Lago raid on August 8th or 88. But this guy, not only is his name Bates, like Beast, but his first name is Jake. Well, in Latin gematria, Jake is 616. And 616 is the alternate number of the beast. And then this guy is born in 1999 on the date March 3rd, or 33. I mean, what? I mean, what's going on here? He's even got the 38 on his jersey, which I just pointed out, 308. I mean, come on. March 3rd and 3rd of March, 60 and 66, like 33, 66, and 60. And this game was, of course, in Houston, Texas, which, along with Houston Texans, has matching 156 gematria with both 33 and 666. Think about the verse of the Bible that reveals the number of the beast. Here is wisdom. And we reveal the number of the beast, which is the number of the man, and his number is. All of these phrases sum to 66. And this game featured the Lions in Texas against the Houston Texans, which all equals 66. But this 66 brings us to another kicker, the Falcons scapegoat, Younghoe Koo. Not only is Younghoe 660, but the name Koo is 66. And maybe there's something more to be said about the name Koo, considering, the government is supposedly being taken over by a rogue billionaire in what some politicians might call a coup, like a coup d'etat. I don't know. Maybe I'm tying knots that can't be tied, but again, this is all going back to President Trump, the 47th. When I kicked off this video, I pointed out Koo's 47 connections to the other two kickers and how he failed to get his team their 407th win. But what I also thought was funny is that Younghoe Koo finished this game with 683 career points, if you include both field goals and extra points. And this was actually a number I just mentioned in my last post, because Eddy Pineiro gave the Giants their 683rd loss. And Eddy Pineiro, 124, right? Giving us a prime number connection. So then we get Younghoe Koo, who was born on a 124 date, matching Eddy Pineiro. Koo was born 1 year, 1 month, and 10 days before Eddy Pineiro. And that's essentially the date of these games, November 10th, 11/10. Now, Younghoe Koo was born exactly 239 weeks before Jake Bates. I got these images switched. Look at that. But 239 is not only the gematria of Atlanta Falcons, but also Atlanta with capital letters. But check this out. This all comes back to the number 6. Because 239 is the 52nd prime number. And we're crowning a new president, right? President 56. I think it's White House. Nah, that's reverse reduction. White House. No, it's government. 52, yeah. Anyway. The number 6 has gematria of 52 in the alphabetic order. And would you believe Younghoe Koo was wearing number 6 for his follies on the field yesterday? Well, in Latin gematria, the number 6 is 399. And Younghoe Koo was 30 years and 99 days old. Koo was also born 3,909 days after Bobby Allison's Winston Cup championship. His team name, Atlanta Falcons, also 86, matching Allison's age. But there's also a huge 337 connection here, and I know I mentioned this in multiple posts, so I beg your pardon while I locate this. Okay, it was in my first post. So this is all about Bobby Allison and Dale Earnhardt, right? The NASCAR drivers that bring this all together. Well, in reverse gematria, Ralph Dale Earnhardt Sr. equals 337. Bobby Allison was born on the 337th day of the year. And these men are considered two of the greatest stock car racers in history. And the phrase stock car equals 337, okay? Now, the number 318 is also synced up with this. Again, if you want more, all of these posts are linked in the description below. But look at Younghoe Koo's age for Sunday's games. 30 years, 3 months, and 7 days old. Koo was born 337 weeks after Bobby Allison's last victory. And this is a number connected to 9/11 as well. Consider how New York City is 2337, while World Trade Center is 1337. I hate to make this about myself again. No, actually, I quite enjoy it, but my name equals 337, so, you know, some numbers that I'm linked to as well, just pointing out. This is the 68th prime number, okay? 68. And 1968 is the year that construction began on the World Trade Center. And not only was it the year 68, but it was the date 6/8, the 6th of August. 6/8/68. Younghoe Koo was born exactly 680 months after Bobby Allison. And using triangular numbers, the beast equals 680. Detroit gets their 608th win on Sunday Night Football with Jake Bates. And Detroit, Michigan equals 680. In Xfinity, it was the driver Justin Allgaier, 68. And I pointed out the 158 and pi connections. Younghoe Koo, also born on the 215th day of the year, pointing to NASCAR. The name Koo matches Robert Arthur Allison, 246. But I'll leave us with this. Younghoe Koo was born in Seoul, South Korea, which sums to 61 and 83, just like the name Robert Allison, 61 and 83. Robert Allison was 61 years and 83 days old when Riley Herbst was born. And then Younghoe Koo was born 1,666 days before Riley Herbst. So, I don't even know why I measured between these guys, but hell, there's another 666 for you. So once again, another Mandelbrot Zoom by the numbers, courtesy of Gematrinator 85. You're welcome if you're dizzy. But, this is what's going on. And again, this stuff is so obvious. Once again, to make it about myself, right? It's like 7:28, as the game was kicking off, I'm making this post about the kicker and how important the kicker is going to be. And then the kicker is the same kicker who ties and wins the game and becomes the hero in his hometown. Like, I'm well beyond knowing what I'm doing by this point. And, this is just more proof of it. All right, so that'll just about do it for this super stream, guys. I do have some more stuff to cover in the world of Formula One. I certainly don't have the time nor energy to do it now. But, to keep my hand laid on my horn here, in Superstream 91, I gave a clue as to why Max Verstappen would probably win the Brazilian Grand Prix. And it was all connected to Ayrton Senna. And Senna was known for his prowess in the rain. And what do you know? It rains all weekend in Brazil, and Verstappen gets an unlikely victory. So I want to talk more deeply about how I put this all together by the numbers, and how I've just been killing the bookie at F1 this year. So there's more to talk about. Let's see what else I had. Oh yeah, this Billy Corgan story. I definitely want to get to that. Aaron Rodgers getting his 151st win as part of the Jesus Code was another big one. So as always, the blog is live. You just got to go to the calculator. Everything's linked down below in the description. You can find everything above here. Also in the links to the description, you'll find the Gematrinator hoodie. I believe we're still available in all sizes through XXL, so check that out if you want to sport some gear and start some convos on your own time. As always, the support, comments, love, likes, subscriptions, whatever, man. It's all currency, it's all energy, it's all electricity, and it all feeds the growth of this work, not just my channel, but everyone's who is sharing the magical, mystical language of Gematria that we've all become so enamored with, which has completely altered so many of our views on existence itself, what life is. The magnificent unity of everything speaks to something really deeply in a lot of our minds, and I think it has a powerful way of bringing people together in a way that only symbols, numbers, and human conscious understanding can do. There's a certain, I'm always thinking about future versions of the calculator and what we can do to make things a little more clear to those. And no doubt there's going to be like a super version of this calculator before long. But, when putting these algorithms together or these ideas and looking at different ways to build the arrays to make it all possible, I realized that there's just a conscious element to it all that computers can only come to a certain understanding of. And I think this is why artificial intelligence in most realms is such ass. Because, humans have a certain, like I said, symbolic understanding of language and truths that you can only code into a computer that will never feel it. So while AI can certainly be useful for a lot of things, particularly in programming other computers to help with AI, it fails in a lot of areas too. And I'm not seeing it get much better. And I just wonder, is this on purpose? Like, are people so stupid that they don't even realize how bad so much of this AI actually is? I don't know, but look, that'll do it for my rambling in this video. Once again, if you made it this far, you must be one of the smart ones out there. It doesn't mean you're dumb if you don't get numerology. We're all wired differently. Keep that in mind. And I think this is something that's important, especially now in this time of political tension. It's actually pretty crazy how far some people are going to disown their friends and family after what happened in the election. And it's sad, but there's a spiritual battle going on, and it's acting through us. It's important to keep that in the back of our minds as we go through this, is that we're playing our parts in something greater. And hey, I mean, what's been happening in this country is crazy, and I don't even really care what people think is scripted or what they believe about the legitimacy of government and how much of it is a play or a stage show. I come from the belief system that regardless of whether or not it is scripted, it would play out in a fashion that appears scripted. So although I have my suspicions about much of what's going on, and I think we all have good reason to do that, it's important to know that on a smaller scale, on the micro, we are in control of more than what they want us to think we are. And it all goes back to how you think, how positively you think, but also the actions you take behind it. And there's been some unconventional actions over the past few years that have led to this state that we're in. And where there's push, there's pull, which is what I think we see. What's the difference between Gematria and numerology? Mr. Sir Craig MD asks in the chat. Just kidding, friend. Well, Gematria is a component of numerology. Gematria is the numerical system that numbers are extracted from language. And when combined with other methods of numerology, particularly dates on the calendar, I try to keep things consistent and simple here. I think that's, what we're talking about. So it's not that there's a difference between them, it's that you cannot necessarily complete one without the other. So you can talk about Gematria forever, but without other components like date durations, date numerologies, astrology, astronomy, mathematical concepts. None of that will make sense. So let's try and what I try and bring together on this channel from time to time, especially during these super streams where you see the deeply woven interconnectedness of all things center stage, not just the things that you would expect, right? So, all right, I'll be signing off. Thanks again, everybody. Peace, love, God bless. If you want to see more, check the description below. But that'll do it. Till next time. See ya.